Hello, you've just stopped at the beautiful little village of Giannades, which is in the northwest of Corfu. We'll be doing a little bit of photography around here. There's some lovely little streets around here and the view's amazing, so hopefully I should get some nice photos. As you can see behind me, it's quite an old village. There's some really beautiful old buildings with like pan tiles and things like that. And just over there behind me we've also got some really little streets, so we're going to go for a walk around those and see if we can get some nice photos of the little streets and corners and hopefully the locals. There's some lovely little streets around here. Should hopefully get some nice photos. Very quiet now, so I think this is siesta time. No one seems to be around apart from the cats. I found this beautiful little archway here. It says 1773 on it. Looks really beautiful, and down here you've got a nice little outlook. Who's vista going back there? But unfortunately you've got this unsightly radio mast and TV aerial, so I've come slightly to the left of this arch, so it's not quite lined up, so it does converge a bit, but I've come over here to try and cut it out. But we've got some nice old wall here. I'm using 24 to 70mm lens, set it about 28mm, so I can just cut the top off because the sky's quite bright, and then really I'm just focusing in on the vista and using this lovely door as a frame. Right, I found this really beautiful little alleyway here. Unfortunately we've got this big telegraph pole here, but I can just about cut that out. We've got some lovely flowers leading off down there. You've got this old building on the left, and you've got this really stunning light up there. So what I've done, because it's quite bright and you've got a big bit of sky and clouds in the background, and there's some sun just shining through at the bottom, I've exposed for the white just down the bottom. That's just hitting the highlights, so that's slightly overexposed, so there's some burnt out highlights, but that's fine because there's no detail in that, it's just white paint. So I've tried to lift up as much detail in here so I can get some shadow detail. And then thankfully a lady just walked past with her little dog, so I just asked if she minded if I take a photograph of her. So I said "Borana fellow mia fotografia," which I think means can I take your photograph? But she laughed, so I'm hoping that was right. But so she just stopped, got a nice photo. So I've got a nice one there. So hopefully that should be good. One thing to note as well, it really is useful to try and learn a little bit of the language, just to speak to people, especially some of the people in these old villages that don't speak English very well. So it's really useful to be able to say hello and can I take a photograph? And if you speak to them, they're really accommodating. The great thing about Greece as well, there's some beautiful cats around. So there's one just down here having a sleep, and there's another one sitting there. Unfortunately this one's in the sunlight and it's white, so I think it'd be too bright, you'll get a lot of contrast. But that one there seems to be happy enough sitting in the shade, so I'm going to try and get a photograph without it running off. Right, that was a bit tricky. Every time I got close enough to get a photograph they started playing with me, but I think I got a nice photo of the white one, but I'm not sure. There are some really nice doors around here. I love the doors in Greece, they're absolutely beautiful. Might take a photo of that one. If I can get up there. You can see this door behind me. I don't think it's a house. It's got a number on it, but it seems to be all padlocked up, so I'm guessing it's empty. So I'll just take a photograph. That lovely green door. It's all in the shadow at the moment, so the exposure should be quite simple to do. I think I've got quite a nice one of that door there. Because it's quite high up, you've got some steps leading up here. If I'm down at street level looking up, you get convergence of angles, so the lines would go out or in at the top, or depending on, so it won't look right. So what I've done, I've climbed up onto that shelf there, and I was roughly about the same height as this door, so the camera was pointing exactly horizontal, so the door is square. So that's one thing to be aware of, because if you're looking up at something and the angles start pointing in, it doesn't always look that right. especially if you get towards the edges of the photograph, you could have the door leaning over and that doesn't look great. So just one thing to consider. And I think that's, as long as you're not jumping into somebody's balcony, that should be fine. I didn't, that's fine. I've found this really beautiful, looks like an old barn door, and these green shutters here on this. The colours have faded and pastel, and it looks really nice against this reddy colour. So I've taken a couple of photographs, one while standing there with the door and the window in landscape view, and then I've taken another one of this one in portrait, just to single them out. Tried a few different compositions to see how those work together. But this here is a little snapdragon, but unfortunately it hasn't come out, so probably in a few weeks it'll start looking pretty, but for the moment it's part of the photograph anyway. But I think that looks really beautiful as a simple photograph. We just walked to the top of Giannades to try and get a vista, get some landscape photographs right from the top, but unfortunately there aren't many vistas from up here. It's right in the middle of the day anyway. There's a blue cast area, but there's a little house right on that mountain over the background. So I've zoomed in, just cropped out the sky, and just got a few of those cypress trees sticking out in between the olive trees. And the olive trees are looking very silvery. I've put a polarising filter on to try and cut the glare, but it is quite hazy. But there is a road leading up through that photograph. I don't know if it's very visible because there's a lot of trees going through it, but it should make another nice photograph. I've found this lovely little alleyway here underneath this vine tree. There's a nice building on the right, and it leads off through into the sun through an archway. This bit under the vine is very shaded, and there's some white lines going across there which are in the sun. So I've had to do 4 different exposures for this one, and I'm going to have to put them together in Photoshop or Lightroom, because the contrast is so bright. I think it was about 2 stops exposure for this one, so I've taken 1 stop just to get all of this lovely shadow detail, then gone down half a stop, then another half stop, then another half stop, until I got all of it in 4 histograms, and then I'll merge all those and post. There's so many beautiful old buildings in Giannades, like this for example. It's such a lovely building. You've got nice vines growing up it, but they're derelict, unfortunately. So it's all collapsing, which is a shame. So it looks like this used to be quite a well-to-do house. You've got lovely pots on the top and nice little courtyard there. There's lots of detail around these villages. I think it's quite difficult to get a lot of shots, big vistas, because it's very narrow streets. So I think most of my shots here are going to be of windows and doors and things like that, and close-up detail, and of cats and things, because quite a few cats. But I'm going to try and get some larger landscape photographs. So I've come up to the top, but I'm not seeing any just yet, so we're just going to keep walking around, see if we can find any more. But the light isn't the best for landscape photography anyway, so we're just picking out the detail and things. Just come down to the bottom of Giannades, which you can see on the hillside behind me. There's some really nice subtle lighting now. The sun is just setting over that way, so it's just hitting the sides of some of these buildings, not all of them, but it's very subtle, and I think it's really like pastoral, it's really beautiful. So I've used I think it's a 200mm lens, 100mm lens on the 70-300, zooming in quite close, and I've taken about 6 or 7 shots in a panorama. The sky's quite bright, so I've put a 2-stop neutral density graduated filter to balance it down a bit. It could probably do with a little bit more, but I'll do that in post, because I don't want it to be too obvious, because there's a lot of buildings right on the skyline, and if you put a neutral density over too much, then it will just go into those buildings and it will darken them too much, so it will look too obvious. So in post I can darken the brighter areas and lift up the shadows, so I should balance it slightly better that way. But this is such a beautiful little hillside village up there. It truly is stunning. That I think is going to be my final image for the day. The sun is just about to set, so we're running out of light. I think as we speak now, I think the light's just gone off the side of the building, so I'm glad I took the photo before I started videoing. But You can see it's just greening up now from the reflected light, and all these olive trees are giving a nice bluey green cast. So those are stunning. But yeah, I really hope you've enjoyed this video. As I said earlier, it's going to be lots of doors and windows and things like that. There aren't too many viewpoints to get some big vistas of this lovely village, but I think this is probably the best location to take those big vistas from. But it's such a lovely village, there's lots of alleyways, so I've really enjoyed photographing around there, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please give it a thumbs up, or if you haven't already, please subscribe and leave me some comments. Thank you very much, and thank you for watching.